What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here at Data Dash, and today is December 11th of 2020. Well, folks, I hope you are having a fantastic day wherever you are. And in today's video, I want to spend some time to talk about what may be one of the most critical lessons you can understand when analyzing previous price history of markets such as Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies as a whole, as well as other traditional markets on the planet. And that's the fact that as markets grow and as each new cycle is created, there are differences in the way that they're going to react and be perceived. And the important thing to kind of summarize it all off is that history doesn't repeat itself, but it most certainly rhymes. That's going to be very true with what we're talking about today. So we've got that as well as a sponsored review of Polymarket later on in the video, but let's just go ahead and dive straight into it. Before we dive into analyzing the market here real quick, taking a look at the last 24 hours, I want to mention a few quick things to you guys. We've had a lot of questions in the comments as recent asking about when my next altcoin video is going to be, and I'm going to give you guys the official release date here. It is going to be on December 16th, 2020, so in just a couple of days we're going to be having that live, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, you hit the bell icon, drop a like if you're excited for it, as well as a comment. And the second thing I want to exchange with you all as well is that we are going to be having a What is DeFi webinar for Digifox. So if you haven't already, you can go over to my channel and go to the sidebar where we've got some other channels where you can go ahead and subscribe to the Digifox channel. If you don't find it there, you can just search up Digifox on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon there, and we're going to be doing an introductory webinar to What is DeFi. Our last one we did had a ton of people. It was oversubscribed. We actually ran out of spots on Zoom, so we decided we're just going to go ahead and stream it on to YouTube. So all of you guys can participate, and you can even leave a question down below in the comments. In the description, I've got a link to a questionnaire box in this case where you guys can fill it out on the form. All right. So we hope to answer any of your questions. We hope you guys will join us for that. Let's go ahead and dive straight into the video, guys. So taking a look over the last 24 hours, it seems that stablecoins are in the lead. It's what you tend to find sometimes when the whole market is generally red here, is that stablecoins will be up like a fraction of a percentage, and that's better than most of what's going on in the crypto space today. So as you can see, as we go down the list here, most players here in double-digit downward price moves here, most of them really barely above the 2% threshold we use. Again, we always give a 1 to 2% range of volatility here, but I want to go ahead and focus in on, again, our topic here of analyzing previous history as to whether or not we're playing out exactly like what we saw back beforehand, or if we're seeing some differences than the way that we were reacting last time we were in this situation, in this portion of the cycle. As you all know, cycles have phases. We have the absolute peak, we have the absolute bottom, we have the retest back to those all-time highs. In this case, as what we're looking at now, when Bitcoin was retesting back up towards $1,180 and then really breaking up all the way to 20K for that next cycle. Now we're going to check and see how we're reacting when we're retesting back up to 20K. So let's first start off here. What happened here when we retested at around $1,180 here, when we retested those all-time highs? Well, what's really interesting here is that as we got up to this price range, we actually broke above that level for a short period of time and eventually came back down, collapsed down to this relative support range, which was also previous resistance over here in January. We came up, set in a lower relative high here, and then came down to see a stark sell-off from the absolute peak of the wicks here, around $1,353 all the way down to $893. Now, not only was this a very severe correction, I mean, 34%, comparative to what we're seeing now and stuff is pretty big. But if you even want to take out the wicks here, if you want to go towards maybe a more stable high, still 31.46%, pretty big correction. And if you even just want to factor in this case, what happened here in regards to maybe testing the all-time highs, how far we went back after retesting those all-time highs, still right under 25% correction. So it was a substantial correction here in the market. There definitely was a lot of profit taking going on. You can see the volume spikes were on the sell-off days. So taking this into mind here, we can see very clearly that no matter what goalpost you were using back then, it was a pretty stark correction. It's not something we haven't seen before in Bitcoin, but definitely a volatile pullback for sure, that many people have used as a point of caution as we're going forward and experiencing our current correction from the all-time highs that we recently set for Bitcoin on most exchanges around the upper $19,900 range. Well, let's take a look here at the current correction. What's really interesting from the all-time highs is that we've only pulled back about 12%. Now, I know some people will, for example, take the pullback we had over here, which is a fair argument per se, but that was only 17%. And in fact, we set in higher highs in this case since that period of time. So in this case, this is really the correction we should be focusing on here after we retested new all-time highs. Look at that. At worst, we've had a 12% correction. So let's think about this for a second. What's different this time around? It's not to say that we can't pull back anymore. In fact, we even have this more kind of non-optimistic, kind of bearish outlook in this case, trend line here that we've been watching in this case. And there's a very good chance, we tested very closely here today towards this green line. And anytime we test here, we have to be worried that we might have a breakthrough and we might follow through and possibly go towards a lower price range, somewhere in that general range. But even in this vicinity, the worst we're seeing is somewhere slightly below 20%, such as 19, 17, 16, 15%. Really nothing that bad. So what is different about this cycle? What can Nick just get to the point here? Yes, I'll go ahead and get to the point here, guys. So the major point I want to drill here is that markets of scale is probably one of the most important things we can take into account here. So to put markets of scale into context, the important thing to understand here is that as we're going up towards our next cycle here, we've already talked about the expectation that we're going to be seeing lower multiples in the overall growth of Bitcoin's price. In the last cycle, we had a 20x from the all-time highs. And this time around, we're keeping an estimation that we're only going to be seeing a 5 to 10x in this case, which would lead us towards around $100,000 to $200,000. It's pretty simple math. You just have to multiply the 20K all-time highs by those kind of multiples. And the important thing to note in that regard is that because markets, as they grow larger, in this case, need to reach much larger valuations, you tend to expect that you're going to get these lower multiples in price as markets grow. It's the same thing that happened in the previous cycle and in the previous cycle of Bitcoin, right? And it's likely that we're going to see that this time around. Now, another thing that's important to keep in mind as we factor in that and understanding why we're probably going to see not only lower growth, but also less severe corrections, is that in this market, there's a lot more development in cryptocurrency markets. The markets are far more developed than where they were back in 2016 when we were revisiting the all-time highs. And along with that, there's a lot more liquidity shifting into the market to buy up this dip than we saw the previous time around. In fact, it's hard to get people who really want to sell Bitcoin in a substantial amount because there's so many buyers coming in to pick up the orders. We just had the other day another MicroStrategy type event. A traditional company that you would never expect to purchase Bitcoin, especially an insurance company. Mass Mutual, one of the largest insurance providers not only in the United States but in Massachusetts specifically, has bought over $100 million in Bitcoin, betting on institutional adoption with a $5 million stake in NYDIG. So this is really big stuff, guys. Again, I want to emphasize what we're seeing here overall. The big difference this time around compared to the previous cycle is that last time around you had absolutely nothing but speculators buying in at that high. Not many bankers, very little hedge funds, if anything. There just wasn't many developed and devoted to investing in cryptocurrencies at the time. It was very, very new. Now we've got corporate treasurers coming in and making substantial purchases in Bitcoin as an asset class, getting a lot of inspiration from companies like MicroStrategy or Square, right? And this is a $100 million bet from an insurance company. Again, these are established institutions, many of which are publicly traded. They have to go through the same rigorous process of any corporate company. And some of these, as you can see here, have been around for a long period of time. They're not goofing around. They're not some speculative startup. They're not some new age company. This is an established insurance company. And they're buying stakes in major companies like NYDIG that has over $2 billion in assets under custody for digital assets. $2 billion. Pretty incredible stuff. And again, I think we're going to continue to see this trend here. This is one of the major buy-side dynamics that we just didn't have last time. Now, along with that as well, we're also seeing a record growth of new funds popping up across all world exchanges, whether it's companies who directly own crypto or a specific ETF or ETN that's trading on these different markets. And in this case, we just had another $76 million Ether fund making its world first IPO on the Canadian Stock Exchange. So this is coming from a company we've seen before, 3iQ, creating a new ETF product in this case that will allow people to gain exposure directly to backed Ethereum behind these ETFs. And the important thing to note here is that it is excluded to US investors, unfortunately. And this is where the big kahuna comes in, guys. Because the major thing overall is that even though this time around we're selling off a lot worse, we have a lot of optimistic things to even look forward to in the future. It's not just all the buyers coming in here. We very much have a chance to see buyers come in going forward into the next year. And that's going to be really, really exciting to see when we see major events like the ETF get announced for the United States, where it'll allow anyone to get exposure, unlike an exchange traded note. This will allow people to have Bitcoin in their pension funds. It will allow a lot of major investment firms to finally gain that exposure that they may not be able to gain exposure to just yet. It's really, really exciting stuff. And I'm excited to see how the market will react to this. I don't think it's going to be coming out anytime soon. I think it's going to be probably the expected 5-year process that many institutional experts called back in 2017. 2022 is going to be the year. And that's why we believe in the expanding cycles. As we've taken a look at the price history, we understand that these markets are going to take longer to go through their bull markets and their bear markets, as well as experience lower multiples. And that's not something to not be excited about. It's still going to do great. I can't think of any other market that's going to perform like Bitcoin and crypto as a whole. So anyways, I know I've rambled on enough overall today, guys. I hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are. And let's go ahead and dive straight in to this review of Polymarket. Alrighty, everyone. So in today's sponsored review, we're taking a look over a platform known as Polymarket. Now, for those of you who are hearing about them for the first time, to put it simple, Polymarket is aiming to be the world's leading information platform when it comes to world events. It gives you and the rest of the community the opportunity in a decentralized and scalable fashion to place bets on world events turning out one way or the other, and possibly giving you the opportunity to win big as well in doing so. So I want to go ahead, dive straight into the platform, but I want to go ahead and say right off the bat here that Polymarket as a platform has absolutely fantastic product design. We have a lot of sponsors here on the channel, all of which are products that I really enjoy and would use myself, but I gotta say Polymarket's design overall is pristine, and it makes the overall experience of using a decentralized platform extremely simple and intuitive, just like you would expect from a traditional website. So let's go ahead and dive straight into it and just get a grasp here of what the platform is all about and how it operates. So as you can see here, going to the straight website, it's just polymarket.com. We'll have a link down below in the description where you guys can join the platform. In regards to navigating it, it's very streamlined here. When you set up a profile, as we'll dive to in just a moment, you can see that the platform here showcases your portfolio value, open positions, and your cash positions, ready to be used to place certain types of bets on different events in the market. The great thing here, though, is you can see the popular markets people are already betting on at the moment. So we have one here, for example, on the election, asking, will Donald Trump be inaugurated for his second term of presidency in the United States? And you can see here, as we click into this specific market, that over the last 24 hours, we can see variations here. And it's going to be between basically a dollar range here, where there's going to be the no and yes value. And as the yes value, for example, grows in this case, let's say, for example, we'll just step back here to the all-time range here. Let's say that I wanted to place a bet that even though the odds are not in my favor at the moment, I wanted to place a high-risk bet that Trump was going to come back into office here in the last coming few weeks, right, until we have the official decision. I could go through, place a certain amount of USDC or add USDC to my account and go through and basically specify how much I want to bet on this. And if it turns out that I actually am right on this, I can end up making a nice hefty profit off of this, as the value of the yes token in this case flips upward in a very high fashion coming into the close. It could also be as well that no would actually be the safer bet here in this case. As we can see, the market generally speaking is saying that's very unlikely, and you can still make a slight margin in this case being in the no category. But overall, you can see your average price here, the estimated shares you're buying into the bet, and along with that as well, the max winnings and the maximum return on your investment, giving you all the core calculations you need to know to do proper risk assessment as well as reward assessment. Now, diving in a little bit deeper here, we can see there's not only a lot of key metrics here, when the event ends, as well as any further details about the market, but I want to go ahead and dive into the user experience here about how you kind of get started with Polymarket, because I think the concept is actually very easy for people to grasp, mainly due to the fact that Polymarket's user experience is absolutely phenomenal. Again, guys, I have to say this in a candid way. I built my own product in the DeFi space, and I got to tell you, there's a lot of people who don't build good decentralized applications that just make something simple in regards to using cryptocurrencies. Well, Polymarket has completely stepped out of the standard from the competition, and they made it extremely simple. You can use really stellar fiat on-ramps like Transact that are natively integrated that allow you to buy USDC that you can utilize to place bets on the platform with your debit or credit card. Fees are relatively reasonable as well, and along with that, when it comes to depositing and withdrawing as well, you can also deposit existing crypto. So in this case, I can click deposit, and I'm already getting an address here to deposit USDC in, so I can top up my account. But here's the interesting catch. This isn't just any USDC address. In fact, this is a layer 2 address. And the same goes here for where my stablecoins get deposited when it comes to the debit and credit card on-ramps. Polymarket is one of the first major applications out there in the market that's gained traction that's using Matic Network, one of the many layer 2 solutions for the Ethereum network. And it dramatically reduces fees when interacting on the platform. And I think this is absolutely phenomenal, how we're actually seeing real practical applications utilizing layer 2, no matter if it's Matic or if it's Optimism or ZK rollups, whatever it is, right? This is really exciting stuff. And to see here how simple and streamlined it is to get started is really phenomenal, in my opinion. On a product design side, I just want to say hats off to the team for it. Now, again, you can always go back to your actual portfolio here. There's these two tabs, the Markets tab, which we saw earlier over here, which allowed us to dive into specific events. And outside of that as well, you've also got your portfolio tab, where you can see, again, that key banner of all your major metrics here, not overcomplicating it, and also your market positions and your liquidity positions. So, again, also diving into your history where you've seen your open and close positions here on the sideline. They keep the user experience extremely simple here, and it really is nice because you don't need much more than this. I think in the future it'll be interesting to see them adding more features, adding more markets, but right now you've got a pretty good market size for a lot of different bets here. Another one, for example, it's not just politics that you can be looking at. You can be looking at things, for example, like Bitcoin breaking certain price ranges before certain dates, almost serving similar to like an options contract in this case to protect you in this case, right? So we can see here that as we go further and further, as we've started to go through this corrective period that we've seen in crypto markets, as we talked about in today's video. In this case, we can see here that the no's have actually started to gain more favor here as a reason that Bitcoin won't pass 20K before the end of the year. Most of the market is betting that it won't happen here. So again, this is really exciting to see. Like over the last 24 hours, that was the change that we saw. But over the last couple of days, just the last 7 days to be precise, the no's have gone from 19 cents all the way up to 60 cents. A major shift here in this case, almost more than tripling in value in this case, from around 20 cents to 60 cents. Not bad if you can get it. And the really cool thing here is, again, you could bet on the contrary, and you could say that, maybe you want to go along with the nose, but maybe you say, no, I think it's at a discount now, and I think Bitcoin's going to break 20K. I think there's going to be some big event, right? And you can see that there's good liquidity, there's good trade volume here, and you know the date here where it's going to end. Again, very, very fascinating stuff here. You can do all types of different ones. There's things betting on IPOs of companies. Will Uniswap version 3 launch? Any kind of really cool things that you might want to, bet on. Julian Assange getting pardoned. All types of interesting things overall that are really eye-catching and fun and visual that make investing and betting in this case a lot funner than it usually is. Now, I want to go ahead and, again, talk about the kind of solidification of the praise of this platform. I know I probably sound like a big fanboy of Polymarket, but I'm not the only one. Vitalik came out in support of Polymarket and actually, basically pointed out the significance and the quality and the development of the application here, using really streamlined account generation methods such as Magic Link, which allow you in this case, when you go through your account registration, to just use your email. That's one thing I want to emphasize here, back here on the overall kind of profile tab of your account. The important thing to note is that account generation is extremely simple, and there's a ton of guidelines here that'll help you in getting started with the actual application overall. So again, if you're ever lost in any way, you can definitely contact support here. I admire these intercom just like we do at Digifox, and along with this as well, the overall process of getting started is streamlined, right? I think the idea of not only needing your email in this case is fantastic. It's basically native, simplified two-factor authentication. You can't get much better than that. Now, going through here again, you can read through how Untitled talks about how they utilize layer 2 solutions like Matic to make it all possible. But I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of the other accolades here as well. Getting featured in Yahoo here about how the prediction markets have made themselves known in regards to the presidential election. Polymarket had tons of volume going through for the presidential election. Millions of dollars in bets here, as we saw back here on the other page, that allowed people to bet one way or the other on the election. And along with that as well, Polymarket has had a massive raise, over $4 million from major names such as Polychain, Naval, who a lot of people understand or know about from podcasts, and a lot of on Twitter. He's a big guy as well, follow a lot of his content, and other notable investors participating in the raise. This is really exciting stuff, and I recommend you read through the Forbes article, just learning a little bit about the founders and the team here as to what they're trying to build. I think overall, Polymarket is really doing a service in regards to building decentralized applications. It's something personally to me that I think deserves to be on a decentralized platform, cutting out the middleman. A lot of the time on betting platforms, you can run into this case where you're just trying to basically bet on the odds of something in this case, and you're going to be dealing much like a traditional casino with these big middlemen in this case who are going to be charging big fees, who are going to basically be getting in the way from you just playing and participating with another person on the market and putting yourself in a position that you want to be in. And I think between the simplified fiat on-ramps, the layer 2 solutions, the user experience, Polymarket has built a really premier experience here. And I highly recommend you guys check it out at the link down below in the description to get more information. But that being said, guys, that's pretty much it for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed what we talked about today. If you like Polymarket, drop a like here and leave a comment as well if you have any questions, and the Polymarket team or maybe another community member can get back to you on answering those. But overall, this is really exciting stuff, guys. If you have any questions, again, don't hesitate to contact their support. They have a quick turnaround and response time. But overall, that's it for today's video, everyone. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.